Everyone thinks the beast system is some sci-fi nightmare waiting for our great-grandchildren in a distant future. But look at your phone and look at your bank account right now. It is not coming. It is already built, and we are standing at the precipice of an age unlike any before it, where ancient prophecies are unfolding before our very eyes. The warnings have echoed through the corridors of time for decades, pointing to a convergence of powers that would culminate in a single system of control. Yet most people dismissed these warnings as conspiracy theories. What if the very framework for this global dominion is not some far-off fantasy, but is being meticulously constructed piece by agonizing piece right now in the present moment? This is not about sensationalism. It is about sober analysis and connecting the dots that are increasingly obvious to anyone who is actually paying attention to the changes in our world. The system described in apocalyptic texts is more than just a political empire. It is a comprehensive integrated mechanism designed for ultimate control over every single facet of human existence. They are building a system that demands ultimate allegiance and enforces participation, utilizing the most advanced technologies and sophisticated psychological operations the world has ever known. To understand this, we have to look at the spiritual and philosophical underpinnings that pave the way for such a system. Because the erosion of traditional values was not an accident. The abandonment of transcendent truth and the rise of a secular humanism that places man at the center of the universe were deliberate shifts designed to create a moral vacuum. When objective truth is dismissed as just a subjective narrative and moral absolutes are declared oppressive, the stage is set for a new authority to define what is true and what is good. This creates a fertile ground for a universal system that promises peace and security, but charges you the cost of your individual liberty and your spiritual autonomy. The promise of a better world often masks the agenda of total control, and nowhere is this more visible than in the economic dimension, which is the backbone of the beast. We are witnessing an unprecedented global push towards a cashless society. And you need to understand that this is not just about convenience. It is entirely about control and surveillance. Physical cash offers a degree of anonymity and independence that digital transactions inherently lack, because every digital swipe leaves a trace that can be monitored. The advent of central bank digital currencies represents a quantum leap in this direction, because these are not merely digital versions of existing money, they are programmable currency. Imagine a currency that can be programmed to expire if not spent by a certain date, or that can only be used for specific types of purchases approved by the central authority. This is not futuristic speculation. These capabilities are being openly discussed and developed by central banks around the world right now as we speak. A global digital currency would provide the ultimate lever of power, because your ability to buy or sell would be entirely dependent on your compliance with the system. This economic control creates a mechanism where dissent can be instantly penalized and conformity is rewarded, ensuring that no individual can operate outside the dictates of the central authority. The economic infrastructure for this system is being laid down brick by digital brick under the guise of efficiency and modernization, while we cheer for the convenience. Beyond economics, the technological infrastructure of surveillance and identity control is rapidly advancing with artificial intelligence and biometric scanning, converging to create a web of monitoring. Smart cities are often lauded as symbols of progress and efficiency, but in reality, they are integrated surveillance hubs, where cameras and sensors track every movement and interaction you make. Your digital footprint is expanding exponentially, creating a comprehensive profile of your life, your habits, and your beliefs that is stored in databases you will never see. In some parts of the world, social credit systems are already operational, where citizens are assigned scores based on their behavior, dictating their access to travel and employment. This is not merely an authoritarian anomaly in a distant land. It is a blueprint and a model that globalist organizations are openly discussing for wider implementation across the West. The goal is a world where anonymity is a relic of the past, and where every individual is digitally identified and tracked and scored in real time. This digital identity, linked to your finances and your behavior, becomes your passport to participation in society, and without it, you become an outcast unable to function. This is the very essence of the mark described in Revelation, not necessarily a physical tattoo, but an inescapable system of identification and compliance without which one cannot buy or sell. The technology to implement such a system is not theoretical anymore. It is already here, and it is being refined and integrated with breathtaking speed while we are distracted. The political dimension is equally critical, as we observe a persistent and relentless drive towards global governance that bypasses national sovereignty. International organizations are actively promoting a vision of a borderless world where national sovereignty is diminished and global institutions hold increasing sway over local laws. Concepts like global citizenship are not benign philosophical ideas. They are frameworks designed to shift power away from democratically elected national governments towards unelected global elites. The push for global treaties and harmonized laws is eroding the unique identities of sovereign states and centralizing power in the hands of a few. When global crises, whether climate-related or economic, are presented as problems that only global solutions can address, it opens the door for the centralization of absolute power. These crises become opportunities to leverage fear and justify the expansion of global authority to implement policies that would otherwise be rejected by independent nations. This consolidation of power is a direct precursor to the political structure of the system, where a single entity holds dominion over the nations of the earth. Let us not overlook the profound implications of social engineering and the manipulation of information. Because, in an age of connectivity, control over the narrative is paramount. Mainstream media is increasingly concentrated in the hands of a few powerful corporations, presenting a unified perspective that shapes public opinion and marginalizes anyone who asks questions. Social media platforms, which once appeared to foster open communication, are increasingly acting as gatekeepers by censoring content and deplatforming individuals. They algorithmically promote certain viewpoints while suppressing others to create an illusion of consensus that makes you feel crazy for thinking differently than the herd. The rise of fact-checking organizations, often funded by the very entities they claim to scrutinize, creates an environment where a singular truth is enforced from the top down. This control over information is not merely about shaping political outcomes, it is about shaping consciousness itself and creating a populace that is receptive to the global agenda. The system thrives on conformity of thought, and the tools of psychological manipulation and propaganda are being deployed with unparalleled sophistication to achieve this end. The recent global health crisis provided a stark illustration of how quickly and comprehensively a global system can be implemented and accepted when people are afraid. Measures such as digital health IDs and extensive contact tracing became temporary realities and demonstrated the potential for a global infrastructure that dictates access to life. The swiftness with which these measures were adopted and the widespread public acceptance revealed how readily societies can be conditioned to accept limitations on their freedoms. This infrastructure does not simply disappear once it is built. It remains as a template for future implementation, ready to be reactivated for the next perceived crisis. The integration of health status into digital identity systems is a powerful component, providing another layer of control over individual autonomy and participation in society. If access to fundamental aspects of life can be restricted based on health compliance, then the precedent is set for other forms of compliance to be similarly enforced in the future. Furthermore, we must examine the spiritual and ideological dimensions, because the system described in prophecy is not merely a secular political entity, but has a profound spiritual component. It demands worship, or at least absolute allegiance, which effectively functions as worship in a secularized world that has rejected traditional faith. We see a growing rejection of traditional monotheistic faiths and a simultaneous rise in various forms of New Age spirituality and a quasi-religious devotion to science. Transhumanism is the idea that humanity can and should evolve beyond its current biological limitations through technology, and it presents a particularly insidious spiritual challenge. It promises immortality and enhanced abilities, and a future where man becomes his own god, which directly contradicts the biblical understanding of humanity's nature. This ideology is embraced by many powerful figures in the tech spheres, and it seeks to redefine what it means to be human and to transcend divinely ordained limits. This hubris is a foundational spiritual deception that paves the way for a system that exalts man and denies the Creator while masquerading as progress. It is a spiritual rebellion dressed in the garments of innovation designed to draw allegiance away from the divine and towards the system itself. The convergence of these various elements is what makes the current moment so critical, because seemingly disparate threads are being woven together into a unified tapestry. Imagine a world where your digital ID linked to your biometric data, and your social credit score determines your ability to work and feed your family. This is the architecture of the beast system, and it is not a distant threat. It is being built right now in real time under our noses while we scroll through our feeds. The narrative often used to justify these advancements is one of safety and convenience. And who wouldn't want a safer and more efficient world on the surface? But we must ask at what cost we are purchasing this safety, because history teaches us that absolute power corrupts absolutely regardless of the initial promises. A system designed for total control will inevitably lead to oppression, even if the architects claim they are building a utopia for our own good. Prophecy speaks of a time when no one can buy or sell unless they have the mark. And in our modern context, this mark looks less like a brand and more like a QR code. If your digital ID is revoked or your social credit score falls below a certain threshold, you are effectively unable to participate in society and you become a ghost. This is the power of the system, not through overt violence, but through the insidious power of exclusion and economic disenfranchisement that starves you out. The architects of this system often speak of a great reset, which is a fundamental transformation of global society and a re-engineering of every aspect of human life. They speak of a fourth industrial revolution, where technology merges with biology, blurring the lines between man and machine in a way that dehumanizes individuals. We are being conditioned to accept these changes as inevitable progress through constant media exposure and the normalization of surveillance in our daily lives. Dissenting voices are ridiculed and marginalized, creating an echo chamber where the official narrative reigns supreme and making you feel isolated for resisting. So what is our response to this unfolding reality that seems so overwhelming and inevitable as it marches forward day by day? First and foremost, it is crucial to remain vigilant and informed, and to never blindly accept official narratives without critical analysis and deep investigation. Seek out alternative perspectives and connect the dots for yourselves, because understanding the mechanisms of control is the first step towards resisting them effectively. Secondly, we must cultivate genuine community and self-sufficiency, because relying solely on the system for every aspect of your life makes you inherently vulnerable. Localized networks of support and independent means of sustenance will become increasingly vital as the system becomes more centralized and controlling. Thirdly, and perhaps most importantly, we must strengthen our spiritual foundation, because this is ultimately a battle for the soul and for the allegiance of the human heart. In an age of spiritual deception and moral relativism, anchoring yourself in timeless truth is essential to standing firm against a system that seeks to redefine reality. This is about recognizing the spiritual battle underlying the material manifestations of control and realizing that the physical tools are just the tip of the iceberg. The hour is late, but it is not yet too late to understand and to prepare and to resist the encroachment of this system into every area of our lives. The global system is being built right now before our eyes, with precision and purpose, and its components are converging faster than most people realize. To ignore these signs is to willingly walk into a future of unprecedented control, but to acknowledge them is to choose vigilance and freedom. This is a call to awaken and to discern the times and to stand firm even when the pressure to conform becomes overwhelming and heavy. The future is not predetermined in its details, but the trajectory is clear, and we must have the wisdom to see it and the courage to speak about it. If this analysis resonates with you, and if you feel the urgency of these times, then you need to take action in your own life today. Please consider subscribing to this channel for more in-depth discussions on these critical topics, because we need to build a community that sees the truth. Share this video with others who need to hear this message, and leave your thoughts in the comments below, because your engagement helps us wake people up. Thank you for watching, and remember that the cage is only effective if you agree to sit inside it without fighting back.